Hello, everyone. I'm Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney, and today I thought we'd discuss something a little bit different. This is going to be less of a legal analysis on my part, and instead, I just wanted to share the James Comey testimony that was recently released. He hasn't testified yet. He's supposed to be testifying tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. I think half the world is going to follow the event, and so I thought we'd go over the document that he released, or that the FBI released, or somebody released. It was released through the Senate's website, so I'm assuming it's completely legit and above board. But hey, let's discuss this fairly unprecedented. Well, not unprecedented, but it's the first time it's happened to this president, and it's happened really quickly. So let's jump into it. Where is my control here? Hello, everyone. I see you're all joining. Hello. That's not it. That's it. Okay. This is called the Statement for the Record for the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence by James B. Comey, dated June 8th, 2017, and you'll note that today is June 7th, so this has been released in anticipation of his testimony. I'm hoping this was not accidentally released. It seems to be officially released. So everyone in the world is discussing this on major media right now, and I hate major media. That's not true. I don't hate them. I don't hate anything that much, but happen. Am I back now? Okay. So, the letter starts. Chairman Burr, Ranking Member Warner, members of the committee, thank you for inviting me to appear before you today. I was asked to testify today to describe for you my interactions with President-elect and President Trump, on subjects that I understand are of interest to you. I have not included every detail from my conversations with the President, but to the best of my recollection, I have tried to include information that may be relevant to the committee. January 6th briefing. I first met then President-elect Trump on Friday, January 6th in a conference room at Trump Tower in New York. I was there with other intelligence community IC leaders to brief him and his new national security team on the findings of an IC assessment concerning Russian efforts to interfere in the election. At the conclusion of that briefing, I remained alone with the president-elect to brief him on some potentially personally sensitive aspects of the information assembled during the assessment. The intelligence community leadership thought it important for a variety of reasons to alert the incoming president to the existence of this material, even though it was salacious and unverified. Among those reasons were: 1, we knew the media was about to publicly report the material, and we believed the intelligence community should not keep knowledge of this material and its imminent release from the president-elect. And 2, to the extent that there was some effort to compromise an incoming president, we could blunt any such effort with a defensive briefing. The Director of National Intelligence asked that I personally do this portion of the briefing because I was staying in my position and because the material implicated the FBI's counterintelligence responsibilities. We also agreed I would do it alone to minimize potential embarrassment to the president-elect. Although we agreed it made sense for me to do the briefing, the FBI's leadership and I were concerned that the briefing might create a situation where the new president came into office uncertain about whether the FBI was conducting a counterintelligence investigation of his personal conduct. It is important to understand that the FBI counterintelligence investigations are different than more commonly known criminal investigative work. The Bureau's goal in a counterintelligence investigation is to understand the technical and human methods that hostile foreign powers are using to influence the United States or to steal our secrets. The FBI uses that understanding to disrupt those efforts, Sometimes disruption takes the form of alerting a person who is targeted for recruitment or influence by the foreign power. Sometimes it involves hardening a computer system that is being attacked. Sometimes it involves turning the recruited person into a double agent or publicly calling out the behavior with sanctions or expulsions of embassy-based intelligence officers. On occasion, criminal prosecution is used to disrupt intelligence activities. Because the nature of the hostile foreign nation is well known, counterintelligence investigations tend to be centered on individuals the FBI suspects to be witting or unwitting agents of that foreign power. When the FBI develops reason to believe an American has been targeted for recruitment by a foreign power or is covertly acting as an agent of the foreign power, the FBI will open an investigation on that American and use legal authorities to try to learn more about the nature of any relationship with the foreign power so it can be disrupted. In that context, prior to the January 6th meeting, I discussed with the FBI's leadership team whether I should be prepared to assure President-elect Trump that we were not investigating him personally. That was true. We did not have an open counterintelligence case on him. We agreed I should do so if circumstances warranted. During our one-on-one meeting at Trump Tower, based on President-elect Trump's reaction to the briefing and without him directly asking the question, I offered that assurance. I felt compelled to document my first conversation with the President-elect in a memo. To ensure accuracy, I began to type it on a laptop in an FBI vehicle outside Trump Tower the moment I walked out of the building. Creating written records immediately after one-on-one conversations with Mr. Trump was my practice from that point forward. This had not been my practice in the past. I spoke alone with President Obama twice in person and never on the phone. Once in 2015 to discuss law enforcement policy issues, and a second time briefly for him to say goodbye in late 2016. In neither of these circumstances did I memorialize the discussions. I can recall 9 one-on-one conversations with President Trump in 4 months, 3 in person and 6 on the phone. January 27th dinner. The President and I had dinner on Friday, January 27th, at 6:30 p.m. in the green room at the White House. He had called on me at lunchtime that day and invited me to dinner that night, saying he was going to invite my whole family, but decided to have just me this time, with the whole family coming the next time. It was unclear from the conversation who else would be at dinner, although I assumed there would be others. It turned out to be just the 2 of us, seated at a small oval table in the center of the green room. 2 Navy stewards waited on us, only entering the room to serve food and drinks. The President began by asking me whether I wanted to stay on as FBI director, which I found strange, because he had already told me twice in earlier conversations that he had hoped I would stay, and I had reassured him that I intended to. He said that lots of people wanted my job, and given the abuse I had taken during the previous year, he would understand if I wanted to walk away. My instincts told me that the one-on-one setting and the pretense that this was our first discussion about my position meant the dinner was, at least in part, an effort to have me ask for my job and create some sort of patronage relationship. That concerned me greatly, given the FBI's traditionally independent status of the executive branch. I replied that I loved my work and intended to stay and serve out my 10-year term as director. And then, because that setup made me uneasy, I added that I was not reliable in the way politicians use that word, but that he could always count on me to tell the truth. I added that I was not on anybody's side politically, and I could not be counted on in the traditional political sense, a stance I said was in his best interest as the president. A few moments later, the president said, "I need loyalty. I expect loyalty." I didn't move, speak, or even change my facial expression in any way during the awkward silence that followed. We simply looked at each other in silence. The conversation then moved on, and he returned to the subject near the end of our dinner. At one point, I explained why it was so important that the FBI and the Department of Justice be independent of the White House. I said it was a paradox. Throughout history, some presidents have decided that because problems come from justice, they should try to hold the department close. but blurring those boundaries ultimately makes the problems worse by undermining public trust in the institutions and their work. Near the end of our dinner, the president returned to the subject of my job, saying he was very glad I wanted to stay, adding that he had heard great things about me from Jeff Mattis, Jeff Sessions, and many others. He then said, "I need loyalty." I replied, "You will always get honesty from me." He paused and then said, "That's what I want, honest loyalty." I paused and then said, "You will get that from me." And as I wrote in the memo I created immediately after the dinner, it is possible we understood the phrase honest loyalty differently, but I decided it wouldn't be productive to push it further. The term honest loyalty had helped end a very awkward conversation, and my explanations had made clear what he should expect. During the dinner, the president returned to the salacious material I had briefed him about on January 6th and, as he had done previously, expressed his disgust for the allegations and strongly denied them. He said he was considering ordering me to investigate the alleged incident to prove it didn't happen. I replied that he should give that careful thought because it might create a narrative that we were investigating him personally, which we weren't, and because it was very difficult to prove a negative. He said that he would think about it and asked me to think about it. As was my practice for conversations with President Trump, I wrote a detailed memo about the dinner immediately afterwards and shared it with the senior leadership of the FBI. Next, the February 14th Oval Office meeting. On February 14th, I went to the Oval Office for a scheduled counterterrorism briefing of the president. He sat behind the desk, and a group of us sat in a semicircle of about 6 chairs facing him on the other side of the desk. The Vice President, Deputy Director of the CIA, Director of the National Counterterrorism Center, Secretary of Homeland Security, the Attorney General, and I were in the semicircle of chairs. I was directly facing the President, sitting between the Deputy CIA Director and the Director of the NCTC. There were quite a few others in the room sitting behind us on couches and chairs. The President signaled the end of the briefing by thanking the group and telling them all that he wanted to speak to me alone. I stayed in my chair. As the participants started to leave the Oval Office, the Attorney General lingered by my chair, but the President thanked him and said he wanted to speak only with me. The last person to leave was Jared Kushner, who also stood by my chair and exchanged pleasantries with me. The President then excused him, saying he wanted to speak with me. When the door by the grandfather clock closed and we were alone, the President began by saying, "I want to talk about Mike Flynn." Flynn had resigned the previous day. The President began by saying Flynn hadn't done anything wrong in speaking with the Russians, but he had let him go because he had misled the Vice President. He added that he had other concerns about Flynn, which he did not then specify. The President then made a long series of comments about the problem with leaks of classified information, a concern I shared and still share. After he had spoken for a few minutes about leaks, Reince Priebus leaned in through the door by the grandfather clock, and I could see a group of people waiting behind him. The President waved at him to close the door, saying he would be done shortly. The door closed. The President then returned to the topic of Mike Flynn, saying, "He is a good guy, and he has been through a lot." He repeated that Flynn hadn't done anything wrong on his calls with the Russians, but had misled the Vice President. He then said, "I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. He is a good guy. I hope you can let this go." I replied only that he is a good guy. In fact, I had a positive experience dealing with Mike Flynn when he was a colleague as a director of the Defense Intelligence Agency at the beginning of my term at FBI. I did not say I would let this go. The President returned briefly to the problem of leaks. I then got up and left out the door by the grandfather clock, making my way through the large group of people waiting there, including Mr. Priebus and the Vice President. I immediately prepared an unclassified memo of the conversation about Flynn and discussed the matter with FBI senior leadership. I had understood the President to be requesting that we drop any investigation of Flynn in connection with false statements about his conversations with the Russian ambassador in December. I did not understand the President to be talking about the broader investigation into Russia or possible links to his campaign. I could be wrong, but I took him to be focusing on what had just happened with Flynn's departure and the controversy around his account of his phone calls. Regardless, it was very concerning given the FBI's role as an independent investigative agency. The FBI team agreed with me that it was more important not to infect the investigative team with the president's request, which we did not intend to abide. We also concluded that, given that it was a one-on-one conversation, there was nothing available to corroborate my account. We concluded it made little sense to report it to Attorney General Sessions, who we expected would likely recuse himself from involvement in Russia-related investigations. He did so 2 weeks later. The Deputy Attorney General's role was then filled in acting capacity by a United States attorney who would also not be long in the role. After discussing the matter, we decided to keep it very closely held, resolving to figure out what to do with it down the road as our investigation progressed. The investigation moved ahead at full speed, with none of the investigative team members or the Department of Justice lawyers supporting them aware of the President's request. Shortly afterwards, I spoke with Attorney General Sessions in person to pass along the President's concerns about leaks. I took the opportunity to implore the Attorney General to prevent any future direct communication between the President and me. I told the Attorney General what had just happened, him being asked to leave while the FBI Director, who reports to the Attorney General, remained behind, was inappropriate and should never happen. He did not reply. For the reasons discussed above, I did not mention that the President broached the FBI's potential investigation of General Flynn. I'm going to hit the focus button. And I'm back. Okay. On to the March 30th phone call. Everybody can hear me? Okay. On the morning of March 30th, the President called me at the FBI. He described the Russia investigation as a cloud that was impairing his ability to act on behalf of the country. He said he had nothing to do with Russia, had not been involved with hookers in Russia, and had always assumed that he was being recorded when in Russia. He asked what we could do to lift the cloud. I responded that we were investigating the matter as quickly as we could, and that there would be a great benefit, if we didn't find anything, to having had done our work well. He agreed, but then re-emphasized the problems this was causing him. Then the President asked why there had to be a congressional hearing about Russia the previous week, at which I had, as the Department of Justice directed, confirmed the investigation into possible coordination between Russia and the Trump campaign. I explained the demands from the leadership of both parties in Congress for more information, and that Senator Grassley had even held up the confirmation of the Attorney General until we briefed him in detail on the investigation. I explained that we had briefed the leadership of Congress on exactly which individuals we were investigating, and that we had told those congressional leaders that we were not personally investigating President Trump. I reminded him that I previously had told him that. He repeatedly told me, we need to get that fact out. I did not tell the President that the FBI and the Department of Justice had been reluctant to make public statements that we did not have an open case on President Trump for a number of reasons, most importantly because it would create a duty to correct should that change. The President went on to say that if there were some satellite associates of his who did something wrong, it would be good to find that out, but that he hadn't done anything wrong, and hoped I would find a way to get it out that we weren't investigating him. In an abrupt shift, he turned the conversation to FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, saying he hadn't brought up the McCabe thing because I had said McCabe was honorable, though McAuliffe was close to the Clintons and had given him, I think he meant Deputy Director McCabe's wife, campaign money. Although I didn't understand why the President was bringing this up, I repeated that Mr. McCabe was an honorable person. He finished by stressing the cloud that was interfering with his ability to make deals for the country, and said he hoped I would find a way to get out that he wasn't being investigated. I told him I would see what we could do, and that we would do our investigative work well and as quickly as we could. Immediately after that conversation, I called Acting Deputy Attorney General Dana Bunty. Attorney General Sessions had by then recused himself on all Russia-related matters to report the substance of the call from the president and said I would await his guidance. I did not hear back from him before the president called me 2 weeks later. April 11th. On the morning of April 11th, the president called me and asked what I had done about his request that I get out, that he is not personally under investigation. I replied that I had passed his request on to the acting deputy attorney general, but I had not heard back. He replied that the cloud was getting in the way of his ability to do his job. He said that perhaps he would have his people reach out to the acting deputy attorney general. I said that this was the way his request should be handled. I said the White House counsel should contact the leadership of DOJ to make the request, which was the traditional channel. Oh, you guys can't see this anymore. Hang on. I gotta pop that off and then make it smaller. There we go. He said he would do that and added, because I have been very loyal to you, very loyal, we had that thing, you know. I did not reply or ask him what he meant by that thing. I said only that the way to handle it was to have the White House counsel call the acting deputy attorney general. He said that was what we would do, and the call ended. That was the last time I spoke with President Trump. So what do you guys think of that? That's kind of different. Well, that sounds to me like a like an FBI director who's been in a very many awkward conversations with this administration and isn't entirely sure how to kind of toe the line, how to that's what he doesn't want to get in trouble. He wants to cover his ass, right? And this isn't even this isn't a statement about Republicans or Democrats or anything like that. This is a weird load of stuff to have happening. First, it sounded like the rumors were that there was some collusion, and this letter sort of puts to bed that the FBI has or had some kind of investigation into Donald Trump personally. So that I expect him to testify further to that tomorrow, that they're not investigating Donald Trump personally. So I don't know if that's a bombshell, but that's definitely news. That's something that I think was up in the air for a while, and the FBI director and the administration in general, the Department of Justice, really hadn't said anything about that. So is this terribly inappropriate? It seems like it could be inappropriate. I'm not skilled enough or trained enough in this particular area of law to be able to say whether any actual legal or ethical boundaries were crossed. Obviously, conflicts of interest within the leadership of the administration of the United States, the leadership of the executive branch, the leadership of the most powerful military in the world. Conflicts of interest should be taken very seriously. The counterintelligence stuff, I think that's all great that he's doing that. But whether or not any of this actually means something illegal happened, I don't know. And so I'm looking forward to seeing his testimony live tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. So I'm going to turn to the chat now. I see some of you are just tuning in, and I really appreciate that. The stream will be posted, and I will do an edit if there's any dead space in the beginning or the end. Is there an H3H3 update? No, I actually did just check today, and the last thing that happened was the filing on the 17th that the judge is going to rule in the summary judgment motions, and that's it. So we're waiting for the summary judgment motion ruling still. And I'll do one of these. I'll go live, and we'll have a big live discussion, and I'll see if I can't even make a big deal out of it for when that does happen. I am assuming that H3H3 is going to win, but I'm guessing that the parties are on the edge of their seats waiting for this ruling as well. I'll tell you what I'm not doing is I'm not going to call Judge Forrest Chambers and find out, because I'll probably just end up taking her off and taking her clerk off, and I don't want my name associated with that. So I'm going to wait until she takes her own time And as director Comey, former director Comey said in his letter, sometimes you really do want to wait for that quality, and perhaps she is taking her time because her clerks are doing their jobs and researching the case and making sure they fully understand every nuance of why this is or is not a fair use, and all that. And look, I'm already another few minutes on H3H3 again. Yeah, too long didn't read, too long didn't wait, too long didn't watch. So I also understand that not everybody wants to watch me read a legal document and not really talk too much about the analysis, but this is just such a historical moment. This will be talked about for the next 200 years. This presidency, this testimony, this, even if it turns out to be nothing, it was still such a controversy. It was still such an age of contention between our political parties and, frankly, between the American people. I honestly don't remember the last time that people were at each other's throats politically like they are about this administration. So, historical. I don't know if I want to be associated with Trump in any way. Uh, hey, I'd be happy to not run for president. That would make my life a lot more fun, to have those 4, 8, 12 years of my life. And I'm saying 12 like because of preparation and reelection and all that stuff. No, not fun. That doesn't sound like fun at all. I don't think our current president is having as much fun as he thought he would in this administration. So again, I'm trying to avoid all political discussion. I'm not interested in, whether he's done other things, or I just think this particular issue, whether in the age of the internet, hackers, possibly coordinated by a foreign government, possibly coordinated by a domestic effort, and the president is accused of helping coordinate this effort, an effort to use the internet and new media to sway an election in. I don't even know if that's illegal. I don't even know if you can make the argument that that's illegal. Now, treason is aiding and abetting a foreign entity, like to the detriment of the United States. But yeah, does this even reach the level of treason? Assuming that he's not personally involved, I don't think so. I don't think there's treason. I'm not sure that there's even an impeachment here based on this alone. If he's just basically an overly concerned president who thinks he can influence the FBI director, but didn't succeed at influencing the FBI director, and didn't make any overt or furtive gestures, furtive advances to any illegal influence or anything like that. So, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this one. So, I don't know that I could ever work for the government. I have many times thought about applying to the Advocate General's office, to applying to the Public Defender's office. And I've worked in stuffy corporate environments where there was backstabbing and collusion against other employees and misinformation. And I am so done with that I might just forego any opportunities I have at getting those jobs or anything, because I just don't want to deal with this. Look at what James Comey has to deal with. He can't do his job as FBI director because he's got to deal with this crap, which is also his job as FBI director, or what, former FBI director. So it's just really not a very fair system. I've already got enough stuff that I'm dealing with in an actual practice of law, and new media and copyright, and the few traffic tickets that I do. And this world is just bigger than any one person these days. It probably always was, but we're super, super aware of it now. And I don't know what's going to come of all this. This is brand new. This is historical, like I said. How do I feel? What do I think of the George Webb investigation? Oh, was that the guy in the protest? I honestly don't know too much about it. I don't. Um, I haven't looked into that one. Videos that I'm working on right now. Right now, I'm working on the John Steele Prenda Law. I want to do a kind of a comprehensive. Lawyers would call it a treatise. I want to do a comprehensive video on the entire Prenda Law thing. I've done two live streams, two-hour live streams, but they didn't even begin to cover how much interesting stuff is there, and I think I can cover it in a lot less than 2 hours' time. So on that one, I think you'll enjoy my next video on Prenda Law. After that, there's a whole bunch of little videos I want to do, and I'm going to try to get them out every day or every other day. My schedule, I've been trimming some fat from my schedule over the past 2 months, thanks to your support here on YouTube and on Patreon. Links for the Patreon support are in the description below. If you I've been trimming the fat from my calendar for the last 2 months, trying to make more time for videos, and I'm happy to say that this is I'm honored to say that I'm going to be dedicating more time to videos as we go forward. He was looking into the Seth Rich murder and named a suspect and implicated by a lot of people. May need a lawyer soon. Oh, oh, oh. Yeah, the Seth Rich murder is obviously a terrible tragedy, and then that it's being used for this other whatever this purpose. I don't even know what the purpose is of this political investigation. It's not an investigation. It's more of like a personal or political vigilantism, it seems. If there was any reason to believe that he was murdered for something other than what they say, I think was a theft, I'm assuming someone would be wanting that investigated, and even the family doesn't want that investigated. So that doesn't mean that third-party vigilantes get to do the investigation. Has there been more of an update with the Daddy-O5 situation? I'm sure there has. I'm not interested in covering it anymore at this time. I appreciate inquiries and all that. I'm not saying that we're horrible people for wanting to know about it, but the case involves children. It involves young children, and unless there is a public statement made by her and her attorney, everything that I've heard is that they kind of just want us all to back off. So I'm going to back off. I'm going to honor their wishes, the not Daddy-O5's wishes to back off, but the custodial parent, the mom, Rose. I forgot Rose's name. So I just think that would be respectful to them. And if there is something that I think contributes to the legal community or to the legal education in this channel, I will most definitely address it. I personally think custody cases are one of the most important issues that need to be addressed. It's probably of all time, but even in today's modern times, there are a lot of custody issues. And I'm not talking about gender issues or anything like that. I mean, in general, people need to be more aware of how important it is to properly raise a child, and how many fewer societal issues and how much less expensive society costs and how much more of a return on investment society receives when a child is raised properly. So that's just a huge topic for me, and I'm going to stop there or I'll just keep going. How are the puppies doing? They are fine. In fact, Nico the Golden was in the other room, sleep yipping in his sleep while we were recording this. I'm assuming you didn't hear it because it wasn't very loud. Does obstruction of justice require intent? You know, I don't know. Obstruction of justice sounds like it would require some kind of criminal intent. Could you accidentally obstruct justice? I imagine you could accidentally obstruct justice, but I would think that you wouldn't be able to be convicted without some kind of intent. Unfortunately, I am not a criminal defense attorney, and I do not know, especially for that level of offense, what exactly is involved there. I could probably Google that one, but that would be the easy way out. Am I French? No, I am half Polish, partially German, and partially Lithuanian. And there's probably some other stuff in there that I don't know that I'm going to do a DNA test to find out. I don't want an insurance company to be able to use my DNA test against me. And so until this whole insurance thing stabilizes, no DNA test for Leonard French. Okay. White dust on purple mattress. There will be, oh yes, thank you for reminding me. There will be a whole nother. There will be another Purple Mattress update video. Purple Mattress has released, or excuse me, Ryan, oh, I forgot his last name. The defendants have released a affidavit that says that he didn't actually work for Ghostbed and doesn't actually work for Ghostbed, and that he's not working for Ghostbed now, and this wasn't doing any of this under their direction or influence. So I don't know. I'm in contact with his attorney, Mark Randazza, and I've got a transcript of some other interviews that were done with them. So there will be an update in the Purple Mattress case as well. Do I get offended by Polish jokes? No. I'm fairly certain that most of those are like tribal out-of-towner jokes, like let's make fun of the Scots because we're Welsh. Well, let's make fun of the Welsh because we're Irish. Let's make fun of the Irish because we're Scots. That sort of thing. What do I mean insurance thing? I mean health insurance and health care costs are going up much faster than inflation or anything. Even I have had to take steps to try and figure out what health insurance I can afford. It's not a pretty situation here in the U.S. if you don't have employer sponsored health insurance. So I'm hoping that Obamacare / the Affordable Care Act will either not get repealed or will get repealed into something that still works for me. And until that happens, I have insurance. I'm just not in any hurry to get my DNA tested, not knowing whether that could be used against me in the future. For example, let me just give you an example. Before the Affordable Care Act, insurance companies could completely deny coverage for pre-existing conditions. If I got insurance now and I didn't have insurance with your company before, you could deny me coverage if it turns out that I have cancer, but that I had cancer from before I was insured with you. Under the Affordable Care Act, you can no longer do that. Under the new Affordable Health Care Act proposal, which was not passed, there was still some kind of accounting for pre-existing conditions, but then there was a penalty added in case you let your insurance lapse and a pre-existing condition developed. So you'd still be covered, but you'd get some kind of financial penalty. That it didn't seem to be a huge financial penalty, but then again, the costs are going up so much so fast that it cost me more for my health insurance than it cost me for my car and my house combined. So that's a terrible situation, and I'm kind of hoping that somebody does something about it, because if it doesn't stabilize or there becomes some kind of cost control or something like that, I think we're going to see even further of a financial burden shift in this country, which, again, I'm not really taking a political stance in this video on, but a change of that drastic of a change would be trying on a lot of different people and would create more turmoil in the country. Again, I'm trying to stay apolitical here. I'm not trying to take a position that it's going to happen because of one party or another or anything like that, but just that there will be a lot of difficulty if people cannot afford basic health care and go back to visiting emergency rooms to get basic care and then not paying bills and then getting sued, and then what are we going to do about people who don't pay their hospital bill? It's a terrible situation. So it's one of those where it might be better to nip it ahead of time than deal with it on the back end. But that gets into the political discussion, and I'm going to stop there. Yeah, Mr. Car Crazy says the ACA kind of accelerated the mess. That's kind of a fair assessment. I don't think the ACA was the worst thing that could have been done. I don't think it was a complete solution either. I think it was a Dr. House solution. I think it was, let's make the patient more sick and then we'll have to deal with it. So maybe that is a good thing. Maybe we experience some great hardship now and we decide to fix it quickly instead of experiencing a slow, painful slide into some terrible situation that we then don't want to get ourselves out of because everybody says, but it's been this way for so long. Alyssa Vamphe says that she used to be a paramedic and those days were horrible. I imagine they were. It would be very nice if I could make an appointment for my health care instead of having to call an ambulance when either something has gotten to a point that now it requires emergency intervention, or that I just need to go to an emergency room because a doctor won't see me without cash up front because they know I won't pay. So yes, the ACA did protect pre-existing conditions. We didn't have protection for pre-existing conditions before that. And I do remember not only myself being concerned as a young person, what happens if I developed a condition and I didn't have health insurance, because there was a gap there between when I was working and had employer-sponsored health insurance and now. And I was also concerned for people who had I had friends who had pre-existing conditions. One of my friends could not get coverage for, I never asked her for the great details, but could not get coverage for a severe condition because it was pre-existing, and it wasn't until the ACA that she was able to do so. So again, I'm not trying to sponsor or endorse a political party. The insurance problem needs to be solved, whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian, Green, or any of the others that I can't remember off the top of my head. We had someone come in for a hangnail. Wow. Who is managing those sectors? It's a more complicated problem than this human being can understand. In any other business transaction, I'd go, I want this widget, how much does it cost? And they'd say, oh, well, you need to get that widget with accessory A because they work together for your situation. If I go to the doctor and I say, hey, my knee hurts, and the doctor says, oh, well, it's more than just, rest up, you're going to have this surgery or whatever, they can't tell you what that costs ahead of time. All they can do is get sort of a pre-approval from your insurance company and then hope that that everything that was pre-approved was covered. And if it's not, then the insurance company sends you a bill, and it's suddenly a fight between a giant insurance company and you, a small-time person. Well, maybe you could be rich. I'm not rich. Me, a small-time person who can't afford an unexpected $1,000 bill or more. That's not devastating, but that's unexpected and throws off a whole lot of things. My recent example was that my poor Ilsa, somebody was asking about the dogs. She's fine. Ilsa's fine, but she poked herself in the eye with a stick, and it was $610 to get the tiny splinter removed from her eye. And she's going to be fine, and her eye is healing nicely, and everybody's fine. But I was not expecting $600 to just disappear one day. And so I do keep a buffer, I do keep a budget, I do try to keep myself above my budget, but that's still, it takes me $600 closer to having a problem, or it takes $600 away from me being able to do something more with it. So what should I have done? Should I have had insurance? That's a difficult one. I've done the math on the dog insurance, and it still works out that even having paid $600, I'm still in the black for having not paid dog health insurance. Damon Boyce says, thank you for reading that. You're welcome, Damon. I just thought that somebody should have like an audio recording of that or a video recording of that in case they wanted to see it before tomorrow or even after tomorrow. So I'll keep the stream up, but I think that's what people wanted to hear, was just what's going to be said tomorrow. And it sounds to me like it's not going to be anything terribly groundbreaking. I think we all wished that it would have been entertaining. I was going to get out my popcorn and everything, but it sounds like tomorrow is just going to be that testimony coupled with questions from the senators on the details. So I'm definitely tuning in tomorrow, and I'm going to find out what the details are on that the senators are going to ask for. But I'm not expecting any bombshells. I'm not expecting the president to be impeached because of this. And I am watching this though, paying attention very carefully. Any legal opinions on the FCC reversing Title II net neutrality? Well, I'm personally all about Title II net neutrality. I think that net neutrality is very important for innovation in this country. However, there's almost no legal basis for it. It's not, there isn't a constitutional right to the internet. So there would need to be somebody to make that argument successfully, which I'm not sure exactly how you would make that. Stay competitive or something like that. I don't know. But thank you very much, Marco, for the Swedish kroner, a 50 donation. I really appreciate that. The dog is better, and she was better even with the splinter in her eye. She's a German Shepherd, and I have never known them to. I have known them to hurt themselves and just keep going. I've known them to injure themselves severely and keep going, which is probably what the breed is for. But she's my pet. She's my puppy. She's my baby. And so the moment that I heard her yipe, I wanted to, check. And I looked at her eye and I saw that there was a cloudy part. And I took her to the ophthalmologist. Did you know there's a dog ophthalmologist? So there is. There's a dog ophthalmologist. And the dog ophthalmologist had to put her. Wait, I was gonna say put her to sleep. No. Just sedate her, as in like no, it's not euthanasia. Damn it. Sedate her as in anesthesia. There we go. That's the right word. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. The camera didn't used to do the 30-minute off thing, and now all of a sudden it's doing the 30-minute off thing. So I'm sorry about that. That's what I get for disconnecting it and taking it with me to a shoot and then coming back. So I'm sorry about that. No signal. Okay, so where was I? I forget where I was. Oh, Title II net neutrality. I I don't know. I would love to see it survive. I'm making my comments if I still have time to do that. I think that if net neutrality gets shot down, you'll see a lot of huge changes, and then I think you'll see a lot of backlash from customers. If Comcast actually misuses net neutrality, or rather misuses their privilege of carrying their last mile internet, maybe that'll just increase the investment in competing internet services that don't do that. I don't know. I'm concerned. We'll see. So, thank you for bearing with me, even though the camera shut off twice. I appreciate that. And I think we're going to shoot this one and go to production. So, I'm Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney. I want to thank my $50 plus supporters, Joshua Meinzinger, Baxorn, and Westin Lohne. You guys are awesome for pledging at that level, and that really helps me with some of the expenses that I have to defer. For example, my legal research fee last month was $150 from all the cases that I'm downloading, and some of these things I don't get to. One of the cases was 600 pages long, and I just decided that I really couldn't get to that case for you. So I'm sorry. If enough people specifically request a case, of course I'll get to it. But this one was just an ancillary case that I wanted to check, so it cost, I think, $15 to download the 600 pages, which is actually a discount because it's normally $10 or 10 cents a page. Leandro, this will be uploaded. This is a live stream. The archive will be uploaded as soon as YouTube does their processing thing. It usually takes about 15 minutes per hour, 10 to 15 minutes per hour, so I would expect this to be up about 15 minutes after I disconnect. The Blue-Eyed Gamer, Wingnut, Thank you very much for your comment. He or she says, want to thank you for not only explaining us the legal cases, but also sparking our interest. Thank you very much. I appreciate your comment. Can you have a program read these cases so you can listen while driving? Anya, that's sort of some of the trouble. I do that myself to prepare myself for some of these cases, to either read them or discuss them, or just to parse them and process them for you. And some of the programs that I use are a read aloud program, literally called read aloud, I think, or at read aloud or something on Android. That one does web reconnecting. Okay, wait. It says reconnected. Am I reconnected? Okay, there we go. I don't know what that was. I don't know what that was. That was my connection or something. Weird. Anyway, where were we? This is 3 times I've disconnected in the middle of this freaking stream. And there is a lawsuit over the 10 cents per page thing. I have a Canon 7D Mark II, and I have very carefully played with the color settings on it. It's in the very most natural setting that I can get out of it. Anyway, I was saying if there's a lot of interest for me just reading these cases, I'm interested in doing that as well. It takes many times longer to prepare a detailed analysis as it does to just go over a document, which is why you see some of my videos are just going over a document and not going into terribly in-depth legal research or analysis. Blackleaf 31, patent lawyer here. Can I do a video on the Alice versus CLS decision from SCOTUS a while back? Because the entire patent bar is still confused. Thank you very much for the $10 donation. Which one is Alice? Is that the first to file, or is that the latest? That's not the recent one if you're saying it was a while ago. I'm a copyright attorney, and I honestly don't always follow patent because it is its own realm. Yeah, 2014 decision. Was this the one where they determined for first to file? No. Certain claims about computer-implemented electronic escrow services, and yeah, and there was a recent case about business process patents as well. I again don't know much about it. I do remember the days when the internet was brand new to the populace and lots of business processes and computer programs were being patented, and I always thought that was weird because why should you be able to patent one-click ordering on Amazon? That just sounds like a business that keeps your information on file, and when you come in they identify you and charge your card on file. That doesn't sound like something novel to an expert in the field. So I never thought that those business process patents were that defensible in the first place. Is this that kind of thing? Is that what you're talking about, Blackleaf 1331? See if you can answer me in the chat here in a moment. Mecha Reaper. Oh, Mecha Reaper. I am into BattleTech. I just bought into the beta. I hope that that looks good so far. I'm really happy with it. I can't wait till they release the multiplayer part. Mecha Reaper says, Leonard, I've been working in the e-discovery field for 2 years now, helping big companies sue each other. Would that be a topic you might discuss in a future video? Yeah, e-discovery is a huge topic. It's got everything from big law firms and big lawsuits to lawyers working for $10 an hour in the basement of a big company under poor lighting conditions, poor ventilation conditions, and poor working conditions, basically, because they want experience or just a job in general doing anything at all. And in this case, it's perusing and parsing documents for responses for discovery requests. So that does sound like a very interesting topic. It's definitely on the list. It's already on the list. I'm just not sure when I'll be able to get to it. I need to really make this a daily thing. Like my actual day-to-day job would be to do YouTube videos like this, because this is really there's really that much interest in the law. I don't want to get out of doing copyright law, but I think this is enabling me to focus more on just the cases that I enjoy and to get out of some of the cases or stay away from some of the cases that I would normally take just to pay the bills that I wouldn't enjoy doing and wouldn't necessarily learn too much from and would probably not do, 100% of a job that a experienced, dedicated attorney who's doing 100% of that would do. So that's also very important. I really enjoy the copyright stuff and the new media stuff and the YouTube stuff. So, can we please not be too elitist about Linux? Oh, it's probably best if we're not elitist about Linux, but come on, let's admit that Linux is pretty great. I mean, a lot of very core enterprise systems run on Linux, are written for Linux, and some of the best developers I know Linux. That's not saying that Windows developers aren't great developers too. I'm just saying that let's not forget that Linux is out there and runs like half the freaking world. Let's not forget that Mac is based on, OpenBSD. Let's not forget that NT is GNU NT, right? I mean, come on, Linux is pretty freaking great. Oh, Blue Leaf didn't respond. Oh well. Yes, Patchworks World says, Leonard, I'd be interested for you to go over past cases, not just new cases, but also make educational videos on the basics of law that people may not be aware of. Yes, absolutely. I started doing this last year. I'm working on my first one on prosecutorial discretion, and after about 10 hours on it so far, I've taken a small break, and I need to get back to that. I want to do videos on some of the overall concepts of law, like why do we have laws? How do we have laws? What are the basis of laws? And some of that touches on sovereign citizens who don't understand how they're subject to a law, even though they never agreed to it or signed anything. And I kind of understand that too. I want to do videos on like the logical fallacies, what the straw man argument is, or what all these, because there's hundreds of them. What all these different conundrums that people get themselves into. Blackleaf, you didn't have to donate $20 more to get your. Thank you very, very much. Anyway, so I have other videos to go there. Blackleaf says Alice was about 35 USC 101, and what is an idea and what is a true invention? So that actually does make for a really good patent summary video. As I was saying, patents have to be new and novel to an expert in the field. If they are not, they are technically not patentable. Obviously, lots of stuff has gotten through that's not patentable, but then has to be challenged. And then those challenges get complicated because we've got favorable jurisdictions. And then there were recently like 3 Supreme Court cases last week that decided things like you can't forum shop as much. We've got to file the circumstances where you can file your patents. I don't know what the details are, but it might shut down some forum shopping. And then there was another thing about business process patents as well. I don't know what they are. They just came through my my news service. Oh, that's another expense. I also pay for a news service. I'll plug them right now. I pay for them, so they're not sponsoring me. But Law 360 is a great legal news service, and although they are pretty expensive for a news service, they really are worth it. I think I pay $30 a month or more for my daily news just for intellectual property law. So I don't even want to know what the full subscription is to all of their news. Do I run Linux? Of course I run Linux. All of my web servers run Linux. Yes, that's true. All of my web servers run Linux. I was thinking though, is WordPress, what is that? That's, so I took the easy way out and I made some easy sites in WordPress. Please, no acid or gas attacks. It was just an innocent practicality. However, I do have several websites that are written in advanced Ruby on Rails, and I still don't know Ruby on Rails that well. It is a fascinating and very powerful language and very, very complicated. What would you tell someone interested in going to law school? Swamp Thing asks about law school. I'll tell you the same thing I tell everybody. You want to figure out what you want to do before you make that commitment to law school, before you pay for law school, before you commit to law school financially and all that. Make sure you know what you want to do. And lawyers are egotistical. You may find it very easy to call up a local attorney, even a good one, and say, I'm interested in the law. Could I shadow you in court one day? Or could you call me or email me and tell me when to show up to court for one of your hearings or something like that? Or you can call the local court and find out when hearings on certain topics are for certain days and show up to the gallery. And the reason that I say this is because a lot of lawyers find out that the practice of law is different only after they've started practicing law. For me, the evolution or realization was that I needed to be more of a businessman. I'm not good at asking for money. I'm not good at being tough on people who are trying to take advantage of me. So I've had to become much, much better at that in order to survive the legal landscape without going bankrupt or losing my license or committing malpractice or anything like that. Dash WQ, I think, to quit Vim. Oh no, it's is it colon and then dash WQ? I forget. It's one of those two, I think. There's a couple others as well. It's been a while. I don't use Vim for anything anymore, except for that occasional pesky file that's on a shared host that I can't access remotely except through Telnet, through SSH. WordPress is PHP string cheese. Yes, it very much is. Yes, it very much is. Murgle says, nice Deerstalker, thank you. When I accidentally wore it to Walmart the other day, several people also said the same thing very loudly. So apparently it stands out. I happen to like the hats, and I don't do it just for like peacocking reasons or anything like that. I think it's just cool to wear different hats. Nobody in this country, in my area at least, none of the men wear fun hats, so I like to wear fun hats. I mostly buy the hats for the channel, though. I don't actually wear the vast majority of these hats out in public. Although I would to the right event. I just, having a former client or current client walk up to you when you're like in the middle of a work day, walking around in t-shirt and shorts, wearing a funny hat, and they go, Mr. French, aren't you my attorney? So sometimes I like to avoid situations like that. But at the same time, I also think that appearances are often bullshit. So I want to have fun with my job and my life, and wearing a funny hat doesn't hurt anything. In fact, I think it improves things. So let's keep going with that one. Where do I practice? Blackleaf asks. I'm in eastern Pennsylvania. I do some national work in copyright in the defense of people who are accused of file sharing. There's this wave of BitTorrent lawsuits. And I have local counsel around the country and negotiate settlements and sometimes litigate cases where people are ready to do so. Ooh, a fishing hat. I should get a nice fishing hat. I also wanted to get one of these ridiculous, like, ooh, what's a good word? Gangsta hat? I don't know. Maybe that's stereotyping. Some of these very, very flashy hats. They're usually baseball caps. They usually have the labels still on them. They usually have like dollar signs and lots of gold and everything. And I don't mean anything derogatory. I just think it's an urban or gangsta or something kind of hat. Like it's the people I see who are playing loud music in their cars, trying to act flashy, wearing the flashy jewelry, trying to get people's attention. That's the people I see wearing those hats, so that's why I call it that. But a crunk hat, a pimp hat, okay, sure. So yeah, I have to do a video wearing one of those, don't I? I mean, that's just like required at this point in my study of hats. So Okay, I think we are going on an hour and 5 minutes on the live stream, and now we're just having a conversation. I have to go in less than half an hour, so I will definitely be shutting us down before then. Majora320 asks, what's your position on proprietary software? What do you think about open source licenses? Well, proprietary software, we're going to talk about this. The very next video, which is about a person who abused copyright, I'm going to go into the details of the basics and foundations of copyright. Proprietary software sounds like, oh my God, it's proprietary. We want information to be free. We want people to be able to use the software to be able to innovate. But at the same time, what is the incentive to create new software then? Because for a lot of people, including myself, the prestige of it is not enough. I'm not on this YouTube channel because I want fame. Your money is helping motivate me. I am not ashamed to say that. But I'm also not on this just for the money. But it is a combination of things. The attention is nice. The money helps, practically speaking. And the rest of it is that I fucking enjoy copyright law, and I enjoy bringing the truth to people. And I really, if there's something I hate, it's this push that it seems to muddy the waters, this information, this misinformation, this overuse. I thought the internet, I naively thought the internet would lead to a Star Trek-like utopia where everybody just realizes how much we should care about each other. And it's not. Maybe it will help us get there, but it's also become a vehicle for a lot of misinformation. And so you need to know what your freaking rights are, or someone's going to take advantage of you. And I absolutely hate hearing all of these. Well, I like hearing from you. I hate hearing the stories of how Sid Alpha or Boogie or Philly D or H3H3 keep getting abused by the copyright system. And then I also get to hear about all the other people whose names I can't even remember because they're just startup YouTube entertainers who are getting copyright strikes, either because they don't understand what's going on or because they're literally getting taken advantage of. So that's why I do this. I started that sentence talking about something else. I totally forgot where I was. Oh, proprietary software. Thank you. That's why we have notes. Proprietary software, I think, is making use of the purpose of copyright to it encourages innovation by being able to have that lockdown on that software for the term of copyright. People are encouraged to form companies to develop large pieces of software that they can rely on for many years. Whether the term should be the life of the author plus 70 years or 120 for corporate copyright, or I think there's even some other calculations in there, that's up for debate. I don't know if it should be that long. We live in an age where things recycle quickly, so maybe it should be more like patent law. Maybe copyright should last 20 to 40 years or something like that. But that's up for debate. The purpose is to encourage the innovation, and so I agree with proprietary software. I also wholeheartedly agree with the open source movement and think that that's a great way to accomplish many purposes that are complicated by proprietary software. So I see both sides. I think it's great that we have a world that both can exist. Is that not a cop-out answer, if you ever heard one? I need an Ushanka. Ushanka. I gotta look up what an Ushanka is. What's an Ushanka? Ooh, I do need an Ushanka. I think I have one or two fake Ushankas. A faux shanka? A faux shanka? A faux shanka? A faux shanka! There we go. A faux shanka. I think I have a couple faux shankas. But I think I would like to have like a real badass faux shanka. Also, though, it might be a little bit too warm around here. In the wintertime, it gets at the most down to like in the single digits to the teens, and even then it's usually hovering in the 20s in Fahrenheit. So it might be too warm to have a real one, because it says here that they're made for negative 94 to negative 40. So how about maybe no on that one? You make me learn stuff. Thank you, Alyssa. I like learning too, and so it's a joy to share the joy of learning. Blackleaf, you are correct. Lawyers' pay is bimodal. A lot of lawyers don't make that much. That's correct. I personally don't make a whole lot of money either, even when I have had my really, really good years, and I have had a nice or a decent year or two. There's lots of practice expenses: $600 a month for advertising, $1,000 a month for an office, driving everywhere, parking expenses, filing fees, and you have to somehow get people to pay for this too, so you're constantly trying to figure out how much to bill the client, because they might not want to hire you if you're going to charge them as much as a bigger firm that they can get for the same price. So if you're a solo attorney, or if you're a small firm, or if you have large competition, it's constantly a balancing act, and it's a balancing act that I did not necessarily expect. I should have expected, but I didn't necessarily expect it would be as difficult when I entered law school. In my defense, when I entered law school, the economy was doing great and the 2008 crash hadn't happened. So that was the year after I entered law school, and I would have definitely reconsidered becoming a lawyer if the crash had happened before I entered law school, because attorneys saw a huge shift in their pay structure after that. The crash made the market able to shift. The people who bought legal services suddenly had lots of reasons to be very, very frugal, and they put a lot of pressure on their attorneys. And frankly, there were plenty of attorneys that were willing to do work for lower rates or under new agreement structures and things, and that made it difficult for the legal community. Oh, Majora 320 says, I didn't address the original proprietary software comment. What's the problem with having to distribute the source code along with the software as long as the source code is protected? There shouldn't be a problem. If there is an open source license that applies, then the proprietary software vendor has to supply the open source part of it, or has to comply with the open source license. If they're not doing that, the problem is that someone has to take them to court or threaten to take them to court, and that person has to have standing to do so, which is another legal concept that says that not everybody can just sue anybody for anything. I have to be in a position to have been hurt or experience the consequences, experience the injury, in order to then have the cause to sue. And then even then, there are still further rules about when you can sue the government or something like that. So I'm not sure if that answers your question either, but it's a complicated problem of having to enforce the contract that is the license, that is the open source agreement, if the proprietary vendor is not fulfilling fulfilling the agreement. Thanks, Uncle Leonard. You're welcome. You're welcome, Brother Box. Oh, Brian Maring. A lot of public defenders are shaking in their boots that the Trump administration is going to cancel the debt forgiveness program. It will be a terrible thing if that program gets canceled. It is my plan to take advantage of that program, because there is no way, unless I become a millionaire, that I'm going to be able to pay back these student loans in any sort of time. My current repay rate would be $3,000 a month if I was able to meet that. But thanks to the income-based repayment program, I'm paying a lot less than that. But I'm currently on the 25-year plan, where I'll get hit with a huge tax forgiveness debt after that, and that would basically be my entire retirement. So I'm screwed if I don't figure out some way to either win the lottery, become famous on YouTube or elsewhere, receive a windfall from the MacArthur Foundation, which I have not applied to. All of you can go do that for me, or take part in what would be best, the debt forgiveness program, by doing 10 years of public service for 35 hours a week. I would rather prefer that. Greetings from Austria! You said you are part Polish German. Do I actually know any German? No, I don't. But I'll tell you. I'll tell you. I know a joke. I don't actually know what the translation is. It sounds close enough that I could guess what the translation is. But my mom told me that she has a funny response to "Was ist los," which is, if I'm correct, it means "what's up" or "what's loose" in German, and something you would ask somebody like, "Hey, how you doing? What's up? Was ist los?" And she would say, "Alles was nicht verbunden ist." And I've been told that that is a terrible misconstruction of a sentence, but I'm told that it means all that's not tied together. So very true to my mom and my dad's very punny ways. What's up? All that's not tied together is the only German that I know. Yes, a lot of people are very concerned about the government jobs and public service jobs as well. Some lawyers, there's a whole article about some enterprising lawyers in Utah. I think there are other lawyers as well who started a public service law firm as a 501c3 IRS recognized. Okay, there we go. I'm back. Sorry about that. These lawyers in Utah formed this public service law firm, and it my understanding is that there is a challenge to the public service qualification for the student loan forgiveness program. I don't actually know for sure what the challenge is. I have only just heard about that and begun to look into it. I apologize for the camera. It's some reason For some reason it's doing a half-hour off thing. It never did that before. I know it's supposed to do that when I'm recording, but I'm not recording on the camera, and it's never done that before. So I have to go figure out the settings. I think what happened was its battery died and all of its settings got reset, and I have to go figure out what they were. I was messing with it before the stream, and I just guess I missed that setting. So every half an hour it's turning off. Um, oh yeah, Patchwork's wild. I didn't realize that. The stream died, so you can't. I'll have to post the recording then. You know what? I'll edit out the parts where it drops as well. Okay, good. If you can still scrub back, awesome. Hopefully it did reconnect. Connor Buckmaster just got here. What did I miss? We read through the statement on the record for the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, which looks like this. And it basically revealed that President Trump, is not under FBI investigation for any personal efforts in collusion with Russia, and that James Comey, former FBI director, has had several very awkward interactions with the president that probably shouldn't have happened, but I'm not sure amount to a level of anything for impeachment or whatever other action could be taken, which I don't think there is any. But so that was, I think the concern there. That's what you missed. Blackleaf, thank you again for the $2. You can please stop giving me money now. I appreciate all the money, but you really don't need to keep giving it to me. Um, do I have any thoughts regarding Persona 5's not allowing streaming certain parts of the game? Yes, Tech Avenger, The Avenger. I did a video on that, and I think they finally realized the error of their ways, and they relinquished. What's the word? They they gave in. They conceded, and they changed their policy. They are still asking you, politely, not to stream the game past a certain point, but they're not going to issue content strikes or copyright takedowns or anything like that for streams. I'm assuming that they'll still do takedowns or something for some kind of something somewhere, but on this particular issue of whether they were going to allow normal Let's Plays and streams, it appears that they gave in. Would it be just to go back to this instead of ask for a TLDR? Oh, okay, well, whatever. I'm not necessarily. I'm not here for a single view or anything like that, so I'm not too terribly worried about that. If people don't watch the original program, that's perfectly fine. It was 20 minutes of me reading a document, so if you want to see that, you're going to want to see that. If you don't want to see it, then you're going to be happy with any TLDR you get, really, I think. Okay. I do have to go. I am going to see... So did you ever have a friend, not necessarily even a friend, because I'm talking about like a younger person that you might mentor. As you were growing up, like I had kind of like a big brother, big sister kind of relationship with my music director's kids. They're great people. I don't need to... You know what? I can mention their names. Ryan, I'll mention the one person's name. Ryan O'Connell is now himself a music director, is now himself a musical underscorer, is now himself the musical director for Ernest Shackleton Loves Me off-Broadway, which is partially created by Valerie Vagoda of Groove Lily fame. I realize that not everybody knows who these people are, but they are having a live stream of their Broadway show starting in half an hour, and I'm going to go watch that on Broadway HD, and hopefully that stream works for me. So that's why I can't stay any longer and chat with you, but I did want to plug them because that's my friend. That's he's the son of my choir director and music director, and we used to hang out. I used to take him to Broadway plays. I don't like the word babysit, but I used to sit for them when necessary, and they were always great, mature kids, and I'm really glad to see that he's gone so far with his music. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining me. I am going to go now, and I will see you in my next video, which will hopefully be on the Prenda Law, John Steele law license disbarment thing. That's what copyright trolls get when they do illegal and unethical things in furtherance of their illegal and non-existent copyrights. And that's what makes them a true copyright troll. So he lost his law license and has a whole criminal investigation and has pled to criminal charges and all that. We had some live streams on that, but not everybody watches a live stream, so I'm going to do an actual edited video on John Steele and Prenda Law next. So that'll be coming up in a day or two. Thank you again for joining me. I'm Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney. Have a great evening, day, week, whatever you've got going on.